with any of the stigmas that I had. Lord, keep me from crying.
Thank you,
My
Jesus.
children don't have to grow up with any of the struggles that I've had.
Yes,
My
Lord.
children are free,
Yes,
and they are
Lord.
secured from the temptations
Yes, Lord. Yes.
that tempted me out of the way.
What do you do when the man who taught you that God could heal your brokenness turns out to be the source of a different kind of wound entirely? That is the question at the center of one of the most significant and painful stories to hit the gospel music world in years. His name is Giuseppe Corletto. In 2003, he was 21 years old, struggling to reconcile his sexuality with his Christian faith, and he walked into a church on Long Island, New York, after reading an autobiography by a man he believed had found the answer. That man was Donnie McClurkin, three-time Grammy winner, one of the most recognized voices in gospel music history. The man whose song Stand has accompanied more Sunday morning worship services than almost any other piece of contemporary gospel. On January 2, 2026, Giuseppe Corletto filed a civil lawsuit in Manhattan Supreme Court. What is alleged in that lawsuit, and what one email, apparently written by McClurkin himself, appears to say, has shaken the gospel community to its foundation? Today we are going through the full story, from the beginning, with every significant fact on the table. Who Donnie McClurkin is, before the lawsuit. To understand why this story landed with the force it did, you have to understand who Donnie McClurkin is to the gospel world. He was born in Copiague, New York, and his early life was shaped by a series of losses and traumas that he later spoke about publicly and wrote about in his 2001 autobiography. When he was 8 years old, his 2-year-old brother was struck and killed by a car. Not long after, he experienced abuse at the hands of a family member, something he disclosed openly, and something that would later become central to his public ministry message. He found gospel music in church. His aunt sang background vocals for gospel legend Andraé Crouch, and that exposure ignited something. By his teenage years, he had formed the McCLURKIN'S Singers and then the New York Restoration Choir. 3 albums followed, then a decade working closely with Marvin Winans at Perfecting Church in Detroit, learning ministry from one of the most respected names in gospel. His solo career launched formally in 1996. The self-titled debut, produced with Bill Maxwell and featuring Andraé Crouch, included the song Stand, a declaration of faith in the face of collapse that became one of the most played gospel songs of its era. Oprah Winfrey praised it publicly. The album went gold. What followed was 2 decades of sustained success at the very top of gospel music. We Fall Down, psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, Live in London and more, which approached double platinum, Grammy Awards, Billboard chart records, an estimated audience of millions across churches, radio, and international platforms. He also founded Perfecting Faith Church in Freeport, New York, where he served as senior pastor. He was, by any reasonable measure, one of the most influential figures in American gospel music history, which is precisely why what was filed in Manhattan Supreme Court on January 2, 2026, hit the community the way it did. The lawsuit, what it alleges. The civil complaint, filed by Giuseppe Corletto, accuses McClurkin of repeatedly sexually assaulting him between 2007 and 2015. Corletto says in the lawsuit that he was struggling to reconcile his sexuality with his faith when he sought out McClurkin in 2003. He was 21 at the time. He went to McCLURKIN'S church in Long Island after reading his autobiographical book, which described how God helped him overcome what McClurkin called the curse of homosexuality. At the church event, McClurkin talked about being raped as a child, which resonated with Corletto because of his own similar experiences. He was brought to meet McClurkin after the event, and McClurkin took an immediate interest in him. At first, it was all very innocent, and what I thought was mentoring, Corletto said in an interview with NBC News. Corletto told NBC News that what he initially perceived as mentoring from McClurkin quickly turned into grooming. During spiritual sessions between the two, McClurkin allegedly began to molest Corletto, and the events escalated over the years. The lawsuit says the alleged incidents occurred during private spiritual counseling sessions, church-related settings, and work trips over several years, including trips to Atlantic City, Manhattan, and his home on Long Island. Throughout this period, the lawsuit states, the plaintiff attempted to quit on multiple occasions. The element of this lawsuit that has generated the most sustained attention is not the allegations themselves, serious as they are, but a piece of documentary evidence included in the complaint. The lawsuit includes an image of what appears to be a 2013 email from McClurkin, in which he seems to admit to and apologize for the alleged misconduct. According to the lawsuit, McClurkin wrote, I am the actual epitome of a desperate, dirty old man, pawning and groping a young man who is just looking for a friendship and close relationship with someone he looks to for help, guidance, and spirituality. I know I apologized for my wrong attitude, but I want to apologize for all of my behavior that has been wrong and put you in a wrong place." He continued, "I have no one and feel it more than ever, but I was horribly wrong trying to force you into something that you were consistently saying no to. I am too old to be like this." Corletto said he discovered the email in 2025. "I didn't make this up. I wasn't crazy," Corletto said. "I felt vindicated in some ways." He's literally admitting to his guilt. It is important to note, as Billboard did in its own reporting, that the outlet did not independently verify the authenticity of the email. The authenticity of the document has not been adjudicated in court. These are allegations in a civil lawsuit. But the email's existence, and its specific language, is the reason this story spread far beyond the usual circles of gospel music commentary and reached NBC News, Billboard, The Griot, and major national outlets within days of the filing. McClurkin's response. McClurkin's attorney, Greg Lisi, denied the claims in the lawsuit, labeling them categorically false. At no time did Pastor McClurkin engage in any form of sexual abuse, assault, or sexual coercion of Mr. Corletto, Lisi said in a statement. The claims set forth in the lawsuit grossly mischaracterized their interactions, which occurred over a decade, and some accusations over 2 decades ago. All these allegations are contradicted by the real facts. McClurkin also took to his own platform to speak directly to his followers after his attorney's initial statement. The lawsuit is a civil complaint. No criminal charges have been filed. McClurkin has denied every allegation. Nothing in this account constitutes a verdict. These are allegations that will be tested in a legal proceeding. What is documented is that the lawsuit was filed, that it contains serious allegations spanning more than a decade, that an email purportedly from McClurkin is included as evidence, and that McClurkin has denied all of it. The autobiography, and why it matters. To fully understand the context of this lawsuit, the autobiography Corletto read in 2003 needs to be addressed directly. In his book, McClurkin wrote openly about being sexually abused as a child by a family member, a disclosure he described as the origin of his struggles with homosexuality. He framed his faith journey as one of deliverance from those struggles, presenting himself publicly as someone who had been transformed through God's intervention. That public narrative, a man delivered from homosexuality through faith, was specifically what drew Corletto to him. Corletto was 21, struggling with the same questions, and believed he had found someone who had walked the same road and come out the other side. Corletto's lawyer said McClurkin had taken advantage of someone who was confused and had problems accepting his sexuality coupled with his religious beliefs. "It's really very sad," the attorney said. The lawsuit argues that the very framework McClurkin used publicly, spiritual authority, sexual deliverance ministry, pastoral counseling, became the context within which the alleged abuse occurred. Someone sought help for their most vulnerable personal struggle and allegedly found exploitation instead. That dimension of the allegations, the use of a spiritual framework as a space for alleged harm, is what places this lawsuit within a much broader and deeply serious conversation about power, accountability, and the protection of vulnerable people inside religious communities. The controversies that came before. This lawsuit did not arrive in a vacuum. Donnie McClurkin's public statements about sexuality had been a source of sustained controversy for more than 2 decades before the filing. In 2002, during an interview with a Christian website, he spoke openly about his past struggles connected to homosexuality, attributing them to childhood abuse and framing his faith as the solution. Those statements generated significant debate at the time. In 2008, his name was connected to a concert series associated with Barack Obama's presidential campaign. When his statements about homosexuality became widely publicized in that context, the backlash was significant enough that he was removed from the official performer roster, though he still appeared at one of the events. In 2013, he was disinvited from the 50th anniversary commemoration of the March on Washington, following criticism from civil rights organizations and activists who objected to his public positions. When the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage in 2015, he spoke publicly against the decision. Through Throughout all of it, he maintained his position, framing it consistently in terms of personal testimony and religious conviction. The lawsuit filed in January 2026 places that entire public narrative in a new and deeply complicated light, because the man who publicly presented himself as someone delivered from homosexuality through God's power is now alleged, in a civil lawsuit, to have spent years pursuing sexual contact with a man who came to him specifically because he believed that testimony. The gap between the public message and the alleged private behavior is the source of the pain that has moved through the gospel community since the filing. What this moment demands. Donnie McCLURKIN has not been convicted of anything. The lawsuit is a civil complaint. His attorney has denied every allegation categorically. The legal process has not reached a conclusion. Those facts matter and they need to be stated plainly. But the broader conversation this lawsuit has reopened, about spiritual authority, about who holds power inside religious communities, about what accountability looks like when a leader's public testimony becomes the very tool allegedly used to cause harm. That conversation does not wait for a courtroom verdict. Corletto said he is now in a much better place. He is married and no longer feels tormented. He also said he hopes the lawsuit will provide closure and some measure of justice. Whatever the legal outcome, his decision to come forward, and the email he says he discovered in 2025, has opened a conversation about Donnie McCLURKIN's legacy that the gospel community will be working through for a long time. The songs remain. Stand and We Fall Down have touched too many lives to be simply set aside. The genuine encouragement those songs have provided to real people in real pain is not erased by a lawsuit, but neither is the lawsuit erased by the songs. B. Things exist simultaneously, and the community of faith that has drawn sustenance from Donnie McCLURKIN's voice for 30 years now has to hold both of them honestly, not rushing to either conviction or dismissal, but staying present with the discomfort of not yet knowing how this story ends. That is not a comfortable place to be, but it is an honest one. That is the full picture, from the autobiography that started it, to the lawsuit filed in January 2026, to the email at the center of it all. Here is the question I want to put to this community. When allegations this serious emerge against a figure whose work has meant something real to millions of people, how do you hold both things at once, the impact of the music and the weight of what is alleged? There is no easy answer to that, but I want to hear how you are thinking about it. Drop your honest, thoughtful response in the comments below. This community handles difficult conversations with more care than most places online. If you are not subscribed, now is the time. Turn on notifications. This story is still developing. The legal proceedings, further responses, and what this means for McCLURKIN's ministry. And you will want the sourced account when the next chapter arrives. Thank you for watching. Stay discerning.